It's a beautiful day to talk about the top 12 wide receivers in fantasy football, so let's just get straight into it at number 12 with Jalen Waddle. He was absolutely electric last year and probably the most efficient wide receiver in the entire NFL, but that's part of the worry I have for him this year. Tyreek Hill is the clear focal point of this offense, and I just don't see Jalen Waddle being able to put up those ridiculously efficient numbers last year now that defenses are kind of figuring the Miami Dolphins out. We saw towards the end of last year, they started playing serious cover 2 shells where they just don't let any deep balls happen. And Tyreek was okay, but Jalen Waddle definitely suffered in production. Which leads me to number 11, who I just had to put over Jalen Waddle because I drafted him in a creator league the other day. I truly believe this guy is top 5 upside. It's Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley and Trevor Lawrence are a match made in heaven. I was going back and watching some film on Calvin Ridley, and man, he is so good deep down the field. Extremely fast, very elusive, great footwork, and a great route runner. These two are going to be ecstatic. We've already seen him produce 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns with Julio Jones. Imagine what he could do in a better offense with Christian Kirk as the wide receiver too. We also just saw in the first game of preseason that he and Zay Jones are 2 wide receivers that go in the 2 wide receiver sets, not Christian Kirk. So if you were one of those people that thought Calvin Ridley would start off slow and be brought on more throughout the season, that's just wrong. He's the starter, the wide receiver 1 on this team. AJ Brown is my wide receiver 10, and gosh, efficiency is great, but it is very hard to replicate. You like that rhyme? Just with these 2 wide receivers, Waddle and A.J. Brown, they got such little targets compared to the other guys in this top tier that I'm not sure they can quite do what they did last year and sustain this ability. I just definitely don't think they have top 5 potential because of the lack of target share. For instance, Devonta Smith had more receptions than A.J. Brown on his own team. I don't think much changes. Maybe they have more competitive fourth quarters now that they have a harder schedule, but the run game is still as dominant as ever, and that's how they want to play. 9 is Amon-Ra St. Brown, and this is basically as safe as it comes. Much different player than A.J. Brown, a lot of receptions. I've been projected for 114.5 this year and about 1,300 yards. If you want to see all my statted out projections, it's completely free on my draft guide over there in Chalkboard. I have the top 100 ranked, all my player analysis, and my projections. Amon-Ra St. Brown has basically no competition on this offense. Jameson Williams isn't even the same role as him, and he's out for 6 weeks. He and Jared Goff are just too good together. They have such chemistry. Jared Goff has always loved his slot receiver just like he did with Cooper Kupp years ago. And Amon-Ra had a bunch of chances last year where he fell on the 1-yard line. I could see 10 plus touchdowns realistically this year. 8 is CeeDee Lamb, and I still don't have him in that top tier of wide receivers. I think his upside is 14 to 1,500 yards, but with Mike McCarthy calling the plays, I mean, that just scares the living daylights out of me. I really like this offense overall, but Brandon Cooks joining the team, Michael Gallup being healthy, definitely take away some from CeeDee Lamb. And just as a talent, I don't think he could ever really have 15-ish touchdowns or 1,700 yards, where everyone above him, I really could see that. Now we start tier 2 of my wide receivers. Number 7 is Garrett Wilson. With Aaron Rodgers, he's going to get that Devontae Adams type of role, as well as Nathaniel Hackett as the offensive coordinator. He's going to be the focal point of this entire offense, and especially on the goal line. We saw the ways in Green Bay that Devontae was schemed open to get 18 touchdowns in a single season. I can see Garrett Wilson doing something similar. Now, I don't think he's as good as Devontae, but in this offense, I think he'll be extremely efficient. And again, I could see 1,600 plus yards, 14 touchdown upside. This dude's got it all. He was the offensive rookie of the year, clearly extremely talented and great after the catch as well. Number 6 is Devontae Adams. We got to stop being scared of the switch from Derek Carr to Jimmy G. Derek Carr was not good last year. He threw the ball 180 times to Devontae Adams. Devontae could only catch 100 of them. Now, Jimmy G won't throw the ball deep down the field like he will, but he has shown that he can produce with guys like Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, people who are not way downfield. And one thing we got to do with fantasy football is realize that Devontae Adams is that guy. Like, it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball to him. In Week 16, when they played the San Francisco 49ers, Jarrett Stidham stood in and threw 150 yards and 2 touchdowns to this man. The best defense in the NFL with a backup quarterback. And then at number 5, the top wide receiver in tier 2 is Stephon Diggs. Last year, he was off to an amazing start. The wide receiver 1/2 throughout like the first 9 or so weeks of the season, right up until Josh Allen hurt his elbow. I'm not sure if that's the complete reason why he fell off towards the end of the year, but Diggs really sucked at the end of the year. But with a healthy Josh Allen, I am going to keep him in the top 5. I do think he has the talent. I don't think he's fallen off at all. All his success rates versus man and press coverage were great last year, so nothing to worry about Diggs in this great offense. Now we're on to tier 1, and the 4th overall wide receiver is Jamar Chase. I like him, but I don't like him at pick 2. It seems like every creator has him there, or they have him at pick 1 over Justin Jefferson, and I just don't agree. I think the offense is just slightly too crowded for him to really have that wide receiver 1 overall season, and I think he's the least polished, most inconsistent wide receiver in this tier. Wide receiver 3 is Tyreek Hill, and I wouldn't even be mad if he wants to take Tyreek Hill first overall. He was off to an electric start last year, almost going to break the 2,000-yard record that has never been done by a wide receiver, but then Tua got hurt and missed 5 games. So with Tua fully healthy this year, I really think Tyreek Hill, the sky is the limit. Now, I did say before with Jalen Waddle, they are going to play a lot more cover 2 shells. That doesn't quite affect Tyreek as much, but it still affects his downfield ability a little bit. I projected him to have the 2nd most catches in the league this year, and if you want to see that again, check it out. It's in the free draft guide below. Now, my wide receiver 2 overall, you should know it by now, it is Justin Jefferson. No doubt about it, he was good last year, but he's just not quite as good as the wide receiver 1 overall. Now he gets more competition with Jordan Addison and T.J. Hawkinson being there for the entire year. And while I don't think that's that big of a deal, it definitely is enough to limit his upside. But let me talk about my wide receiver 1 just so you really understand why I have him over Jefferson. The best wide receiver in fantasy football and overall the best player in fantasy football is easily Cooper Kupp. 2 years ago, he averaged 26 points per game. Last year, it was 25 per game when he was healthy, and then he did suffer that injury in week 9 against Arizona. But coming into the year, his left tackle did tear his Achilles, so he was out, and Matthew Stafford had a serious elbow injury going into the year, chronic tendonitis that really hurt him when he was throwing the ball. Not to mention the team overall was just terrible, but it didn't matter for Cooper Kupp as he was on pace to break the all-time receiving record in receptions. Now there's no issues with Matthew Stafford. He's completely healthy. The left tackle is finally back, so the O-line gets a little better. This defense is still absolutely awful, so they're going to have to keep throwing the ball. And now Cooper Kupp is dealing with this hamstring injury that seems like it's getting overreacted. It's a mild strain, and he's already jogging on the sidelines. It looks like he's completely fine. As someone who has pulled many hamstrings in their life, they do not last 5 weeks. The only time they linger like that is if you try too hard to come back too quickly. And the Rams never play their starters in the preseason, so it doesn't even matter. He won't be back too soon. And remember, guys, if you think you have what it takes to win $3 million in fantasy football, check out Underdog Fantasy. Best Ball Mania this year has a $3 million first place prize, and I think you guys could take it down. When you sign up with code DNR, they'll match your first deposit up to $100. So if you put in 100, they'll give you 200. If you put in 20, they'll give you 40. And make sure to like this video, comment down below what you want to see next, and follow for more. Peace out.